Thanks for joining us today. I mean, we got this $500 million settlement for Johnson & Johnson yesterday. Now, this talk of $10 to $12 billion for Purdue being reported by NBC today. Is this the beginning of resolutions around the drug makers, around the lawsuits for the drug makers? Does this, and when you see $10 to $12 billion, does it set the floor, or I guess set the bar higher in terms of what these settlements could look like?
Well, potentially sets the bar higher if you look at, where Purdue is today relative to where it was. But remember, Purdue was the company, I think, that in many respects is most culpable here. And so I think the culpability should lie where the malfeasance was. And Purdue, remember, in 2007, this is the company that makes the narcotic painkiller OxyContin, pled guilty to criminal charges at the time and paid a $600 million penalty at that time. And also commensurate with that, 3 executives pled guilty to charges and paid, I think, separately about $35 million in fines. So this company has already admitted to wrongdoing in the past. And so this latest settlement will be part of an ongoing saga with Purdue. I think what we need to make sure is that the penalties are ascribed to the companies that are responsible for the marketing tactics that drove the excess utilization. And Purdue's already admitted to wrongdoing in that regard. When you look at some of the other companies that were further afield from the marketing practice, maybe manufacturing the active pharmaceutical ingredient involved in the opioid painkillers, they're further removed from some of the tactics and behavior in the market that I think drove a lot of this.
Yeah, and in terms of Purdue and what NBC is reporting regarding a possible settlement, could involve a restructuring, talk of bankruptcy to make this settlement actually happen. You're seeing some of the other big drug makers that are, tied up or exposed in terms of the opioid litigation right now trade markedly lower here. Is there reason to believe that you could see similar financial restructuring happen with those companies as well?
Well, certainly the market's interpreting right now, if you look at what's happening, I think the market is interpreting the Purdue potential settlement, the reports of the potential settlement, this high of a dollar figure. If you extrapolate that out over some of the other manufacturers that maybe had bigger businesses at this point, the numbers can get quite high. So if Purdue is setting the floor on what those settlements can look like ultimately, that could be quite high. I think from a public health standpoint, if you look at this from a public health standpoint, you have to start to think about whether or not settlement of this magnitude is going to drive out of the market some of the more legitimate manufacturers. There still is a public health need and a medical need for opioids for certain patients. The drugs do work, especially for short-term administration in settings of chronic pain. And so you do worry about some of the more legitimate manufacturers getting out of this market as a result of these kinds of, penalties that they're going to have to pay and leaving the market towards manufacturers that maybe won't be as responsible. And certainly with respect to J&J, where I don't have any relationship to the company, but, they were marketing a patch which was very specialized, and they were involved in marketing the active pharmaceutical ingredient. I don't think people have made the same allegations around J&J's practices that have historically been made around, for example, Purdue, which has already pled to criminal charges in the past.
In terms of what this does to the market and the fact that there is actually a legitimate need for these types of drugs in certain medical scenarios, are there other types of technologies that are being developed or that are even coming to market right now that could replace opioids?
There are non-opioid alternatives to the treatment of pain in development. Most of the drugs that are in development are in early development. But remember, this is a space where if you talk about particularly the chronic treatment of pain, so drugs used in more chronic administration for the treatment of pain, there's really been no free lunch. Every drug that we've developed for the treatment of pain on a long-term basis has had certain liabilities associated with it. Certainly we're familiar with the addiction risks associated with the opioids, but even if you look at the gabapentinoids, where there's some emerging evidence that they can be potentiating addiction. You look at Tylenol, which can cause liver toxicity. Even if you look at ibuprofen, which can cause damage to the kidneys and have other side effects associated with chronic administration. There's been no free lunch here. There's been no drug that hasn't had certain liabilities associated to it. So it's been a difficult space, particularly when you talk about the treatment of chronic pain, where there haven't been good drugs that haven't had certain risks associated with them.
Scott Gottlieb, thank you for jumping on the phone and breaking this down for us and offering your analysis and insight.